Well, I'll tell you, for about the last 40 years, I have had interns come to Waterview, and I kept them 12 weeks in the summer. And then I decided I needed to spread a little thinner, and so I cut that down, and we have them come for 1 week. It's a 1 week internship in which I force feed them all kinds of stuff. And I push it down their throat till it comes out their ears, But then when we establish relationship and if they like what they learn, well then we keep in contact, and if they get in trouble, hopefully they call me just before they get into big trouble and let me help them. Some of them don't. They wait till they're 2 steps in, and then they call me and say, I am really in trouble. And I said, I've done these 2 things. Now what should I do next? One fellow, I said, go back and undo the 2 steps you did because they're wrong. So it's an interesting sort of thing. And but I have to tell you, there's different kinds, because I go to the schools. I go to Oklahoma Christian, and I go to Harding, and I go to the Bear Valley Bible Institute, and then I go to, I've just gotten where it's almost every year. I go to Heritage Christian in Alabama, and then I sometimes go to Freed Hardeman, and I've been to Ohio Valley. So a lot of different places I've been to do that. But when I go to the schools and when I bring interns in, I got to tell you one thing that I'm always working against. Most everything I teach, and you probably can't tell it from listening to me, most everything I teach is counterintuitive. And counterintuitive simply means if you had it come up and the first thought you had was this is what I ought to do, it's probably the wrong thing. And so I teach you to do the other thing. And so it's counterintuitive, so it doesn't make any sense to anybody, particularly young people. They say, I don't think I need to do that. I don't think that's necessary. I don't even agree with it, sometimes they'll say. And some of them I'd tell, they'd say, I just don't agree with that. And I said, well, but your disability is you don't have any experience and you don't know anything. Have you noticed that? You don't know a thing. You have no experience to tell you anything. So I understand your disagreement, but I said, I'm not asking you to agree. I'm asking you to do it. We're paying you to do it. And when you leave, there's a trash can at the door. You can dump it all in the trash can on the way out and never do it again in your life if you want to. So the reason I'm telling you that is because when the older is talking to the younger, you get resistance because it doesn't make sense. Well, I have to admit, when I was their age, it probably wouldn't have made sense to me either. But the only thing I have to recommend is it works. It actually works. So I said all that to say this. Then I have other kinds of people that we get involved with, and actually David is one of those. We, Waterview Church, went into a relationship with this church, with him, some years ago. And so that threw us together, and we talked a lot. Of course, I knew him at Edmonton as well, and we started the conversation there. But if David and I were on the Mount of Transfiguration together, if you can check the switch I've just made, if we were on the Mount of Transfiguration together and the cloud overshadowed both of us, I would say this is my beloved co-worker in whom I am well pleased, because he has several qualities. One, he's smart. 2, he listens. And 3, he actually tries to do the awful stuff I told him. So, I mean, that's a winning combination. So, that really, he has been a joy. No joke. He's been a joy because I'm so used to getting resistance to everything that I teach that it's wonderful to, it's kind of like pushing against something that doesn't resist. I don't know what to do. But he has done that, and he has done well. And what he's accomplished here at Camrose impresses me. I don't know whether it impresses you or not, but as a guy who's a veteran of this sort of stuff, I am impressed. So I guess I'm telling you, you better be impressed too, because you're in the presence of success and someone who does well. Well, we have discovered some interesting things about life. What do people really want out of life? Well, they want something to eat, something to wear, a place to live. They want to get some recognition for who they are and where they fit in. They want to store up some money so that when they get too old to work, the money will work for them. And then we found that we also like to receive love and approval and affection. And all of our lives, we need that. So, my last thing I want to talk about is when you get to the top of the heap, what is it, though, that sustains you if you don't have all you want to eat or wear, or you don't have recognition in life that you like, or you don't get all the love and acceptance you want, or your circumstances become dire? How do you sustain yourself? How do you make it? Well, that's what this is about. With children, this point means very little, maybe nothing. Because you will not find many children who will say, what is my life all about? What am I doing here? What should I be doing? They don't think like that. They are very naturally in the prime of their health, in the prime of their strength, and they're having a good time, and that's what they want to have, is a good time. And so they just kind of live their lives and don't think about it at all. And you can talk to them about it, and they go, yeah, I know, someday I'll die. Yeah, I know it, but, it's a long way off. And so this doesn't bother them, but it's a quality that eventually we all come to. Sooner or late, we come to it. When we get to be teenagers and young adults, that's one thing about growing up. You do become aware of this quality. You figure out that you are not immortal. It's a shock, but you're not immortal. You're not going to live forever. To a 24-year-old, well, you're going to live right now, but it's going to be pretty close to that forever, because I'm going to live on and on and on, and I'm feeling good and everything's going to work. Having fun, I'm building a career, I'm parenting, I'm collecting, accumulating money, I'm taking care of my future. I built a new house, I got myself a new car, I got me a boat for the lake, and I'm competing well among my friends, and I'm doing well. And you say, but what about the end time? Well, yeah, it's out there, all right. It's out there. But I'm 28 years old, and you might as well be forever. It's so far out there. So when you talk to them about this quality, they're not terribly upset about it. They think it ought to be taken care of, but it'll be a while before that'll happen, so don't worry about it. But moving from that, from being young and not thinking, to being young adult and thinking but not being much impacted by it. We move to those who passed that mark of being young adults, and now you have lived long enough to think about it, and believe me, you will think about it, or you already have. You ask someone, how old are you? Said, well, I'm young enough yet. Said, I'm 50 years old. I'm midlife. I said, so you plan on living to be 100? He said, well, no. I said, then you're not at midlife. 50 is the middle of 100. It's not midlife, unless that's what it is. Well, no, I doubt that I'll live to be 100. Well, I'm 45. Well, you plan to be 90? Well, and you're 45. 90 is ages away, and you never get close to it. And truthfully, one morning you wake up and you're older. We have a greeter group on Sunday morning that meets and different teams, but this particular month we had a team, and we go to the outside doors and meet people as they come in. This team does. So we're standing out there, and the man in charge of this had us all circle up, and then he said, do we have any prayers that we need to offer? And one of our ladies, fairly young lady, she said, yeah, she said, my grandmother is in pretty bad shape. She's got this and this and this. But she said, after all, she's 80 years old. And I'm standing right beside her, and I said, hey. That's all I said. Hey. Can you figure out what that meant? Hey. She knew what I meant. I'm standing right here. You're talking about 80 years old like it's Methuselah. I tell you, most embarrassed woman I've seen in years. And I tell you, the circle collapsed. We all got so tickled. And I said, you put that golf ball on the tee, and I just had to hit it. I couldn't keep from it. But I understand that because I once used to be the age she is. And I know that you can't even see it with a telescope. The end, it's just too far away. So you begin to realize that your life is limited. Your tenure on this earth has perimeters to it. And now you have to ask yourself, now what? Or, there's other developments. You may get so sick, you can't get out of bed. Your world may shrink to coast travel, to staying in your own country, to being in one state, to being in one city, to being in one house, to being in one room, and your world shrinks to the size of a bed. Now what do? All the things you did to feel good, you can't do anymore. What do? What sustains you now? What's this one thing we've got to have? In World War II, if you were Jewish, lived in Europe, you were in a lot of trouble. They rounded them up by the millions, put them in gas chambers, killed them, wholesale. Burned the bodies. Men, women, children, old, young, smart, fat, slender, turned them all to skeletons. Now what sustains you? What's going to... Your life is out of control. Your life is going nowhere. It may not last out the day or the month or the year. What are you going to do? There was a fellow that was a psychiatrist at that time, and he got in one of these camps. He survived it, but he said he looked at things, and he tried to figure out why some of the people lived and some of them died, because it was so many people would just give up. You know, it's hopeless. And at the close, I'm going to tell you what his conclusion was. But I don't want to tell you now. If you're trying to make your mark on the world, now, why do people want to make their mark on the world? Why do they want to leave something behind? Why do they want a statue in the Central Park that has their name on it? A great liberator, great educator, great preacher, great mayor, great senator. I mean, what? What does he want that for? He wants to feel like that he came into this world and he did something for the world and left a mark. It may be a park named after him, may be a street. We had a fellow in my hometown of Sherman, Texas, that went out. He was a builder, and they cut out a street on one block for him to build on, and he got a chance to name the street, and they said, what are you going to call it? He said, I'm going to call it Easy Street. And they said, then they realized he bought up all the lots on Easy Street. They said, why did you do that? He said, I don't want anyone living on Easy Street but me. Everybody wants to live on Easy Street. Well, he said, I've got it. I'm on Easy Street. So you're looking for some way. You write a book. Why do many preachers write books? Well, I don't know. But they do. And they write more today than they used to. Every young preacher wants to write a book. A fellow said, I don't trust anybody who writes more books than he's read. And there's some like that. They don't write much. They write too much. They don't read enough. Well, the mark that you're trying to make, it's an interesting thing how important that is at a certain stage in life. Because up till a certain stage, you're making money, let's say. You're really trying to make money. So you're just making money and piling it up. Now, that is absolutely the most important thing in your life at that time. You're trying to create a fortune or a legacy. Then you say, well, that's so important. And all of a sudden, it flips. What's the problem? Well, what I'm now thinking about has become more important than what I was thinking about. And the money I wanted, I am willing to trade the money in for something else. And that's why you go to the colleges and universities and city libraries, and you will see a name on it. Because that man said, would you like your name on this building? He said, yeah. He said, well, for $30 million, we'll put it there. Here's $30 million. But you were so rabid to earn that $30 million. But I'm trading it for immortality, for a mark that has my name on it. Now, never mind that the pigeons will roost on whatever you put up. That's a fact. And if you go to a Christian college or any college and you walk in and you look at names on things, and if you, just for the fun of it, ask some of the students sometime, who is this guy? This is named so-and-so right here. This is the Jim Bill McIntyre Bible Building in Harding. Who was this Jim Bill McIntyre? They say, I have no idea. I don't know. Because life just passes by quickly, and the way it is when you're young, if you weren't there, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It's not real. They say, you've heard of the First World War. Yeah, I've heard they had one. It's not real. It's too far back. But that goes up, and he's trading for that. He's trading all that money in for this recognition. But in reality, the recognition, I heard a tremendous speech by James Dobson in which he called it, "The world will trash your trophies." And he based it on his own experience. He in school, in college, he wanted to play tennis and he wanted to win these awards, and he dug in and he won those awards. And they were in the big case, you know. And he went there to visit one time to his old university, and the janitor said, "You know, I've got something out of the trash I thought you might want." And he handed it to him, and it was one of his old tennis trophies. They had gotten crowded in the case, and they just threw out all the old ones. And James Dobson's went out with the trash. And he said, he said, "The world will trash your trophies. No matter how great you thought you were or what your name was, it's all going to be trash eventually. Because the oncoming generation will say, and who is James Dobson? Well, I mean, is he supposed to be famous? Well, he was a great psychologist and educator and so forth back so-and-so. And they said, oh, really? Yeah, I never heard of him. And that's it. They dismiss it. So you think, well, that's really unsettling. Yeah, it is. But in a way, it's a great insight. The world will trash your trophies, but I think you ought to go out and make all the money you can. I think you ought to give it away to good things that you want to see, last. So I based that on the fact that years ago, when I was an Abilene Christian, going to school, they built a dormitory. And then they built Coliseum Auditorium. And both of them have the name Maybe on it. Maybe. M-A-B-E-E. J.A. Maybe was a big oil man. He was a farmer, but they discovered oil on his land. They had so much land in Oklahoma, and so much money came in that he told his wife one day, he said, we can only eat one steak at a time, and we can have 15 cars, and we can only drive one car at a time, and we can have 20 homes, and we can only live in one of them at a time. And he said, if we started right now and spent like drunken sailors, we couldn't spend all this money by the time we die. What are we going to do with it? And he created a foundation, and the foundation has other people running it, but you get his attention, get the foundation's attention, and they build. You'll see the name maybe at orphan homes, on buildings. You'll see it at colleges. You'll see it just anywhere. He's built millions of dollars worth of property, and it's got J.A. Maybe on it. And that's a good thing to do, and I say we ought to do that. But as powerful as that drive, that ultimately is not the answer, because it doesn't end there. Now let me go back to that story about Viktor Frankl, Dr. Viktor Frankl. He was a trained psychiatrist. He was in a death camp. Of course, they worked him first before they died, and so he worked long enough and the war ended soon enough that he got out. And he noticed that some lived and some died, and he couldn't tell the difference between them as far as their physical capabilities. Some just said, that's it, I've had it. And they just lie down and die. Others stayed going, I'm going to get through this thing, and I'm not going to let this get to me. And he found out this. 3 psychiatrists have given us 3 possible things that drive us. Dr. Sigmund Freud said we are driven by pleasure, seeking pleasure. And that's the secret of people. They gravitate toward pleasure and they stay away from pain. And it's true. Then there was another fellow named Jung. It spells Jung. Ridiculous spelling for the word Jung, but that's what it is. And he said, no, what drives us is not pleasure, it's power. We want the power to make things happen. That's why dictators and kings, they want power. And that's why people sometimes make themselves obnoxious in churches and schools and other things, because they want power to do things. So he said, that's the answer. Dr. Frankl said, that's not the answer. That's not what drives us. That's not what keeps us alive. He said, it's not the will to pleasure, not the will to power. It's the will to meaning. When your life becomes meaningless, it's over. You can't live without some meaning. The reason those people died, he said they lost hope. They had no reason to live. He said, let me tell you something. He said some of the reasons they had for living weren't really a great reason, such as, the guy said, I'm writing all this down in the book, and I'm going to live to see to it that the Nazis are punished for what they've done to the Jews, and I'm going to testify in court, and I'm going to tell the world, and I'm going to write books, and I'm going to do everything. But I'm going to get back at them. I'm going to get revenge. This is unfair. He said the interesting thing, that kind of guy lived because he didn't want to die. He had a reason to live. Well, you say, well, but you're sick and you're hungry and you don't have enough clothes and you're freezing, and yeah, but I'm going to live to get back at them. When you get to the top of the heap of what do people really want out of life, it's meaning. You got to have a meaning. And when your life loses all meaning, we will read about you in the obituaries. The interesting thing, look at the number of people who have gone to Hollywood as entertainers. They've gained recognition. They've gained money. And for heaven's sakes, they've gained marriage and sex to runs out their ears. And they commit suicide. But you had everything, I know, but it didn't mean anything anymore. None of it means anything to me. Well, you say, well, but your life looks so great. He said, from the outside, yes. But if you read the movie magazines, which I guess the only time I read them is if I'm standing in line at the grocery store, I can see what's on the cover, what was really wrong with Jane? I don't know. Let me see. But most of it is maybe hokey and made up, but a lot of it's real. They really didn't find what they were looking for. They found what they started out looking for, but they found out that wasn't what they wanted. There's a fellow said, I climbed the ladder of success, and when I got to the top, I found out the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. Pathetic. I spent my life going up that ladder, and then I got to the top, there wasn't anything up there. So if you want what people really want out of life, they want meaning. They want things to make sense. And that is really absolutely bedrock. And if you want to see people who are miserable, look at people who have no purpose in life. They have no meaning to anything. And they just said, I don't know, life is just dull and tasteless. But if you have a chore, if you have a mission, if you have a cause, if you have a goal, you got a reason to live. And you'll work at it. And you'll be happier. One of the silly things I quote sometimes, they did a little study and they said, what are the values of fleas on a dog. Well, they had 2 sets of them, controlled experiment. This set had fleas and this set didn't. And they said, we found that the ones that didn't have fleas were bored, but the ones with fleas were very busy and were not bored. Well, you think, that's absurd. Well, I know it is. But it really puts into your head something. The thing you're busy with might not be that big a deal to someone else, but if it's important to you, more than having an itch, of course, but it's just important to you, and if it's noble enough cause, you can just do wonderful things and you can accomplish things. People who didn't have much money, didn't ever make much money, and they accomplished a lot because they saved their money all their life, and this little lady dies and they didn't think she had 20 cents, and she endows the school library or the city library with the money she saved in a lifetime. You think, that's not possible. It is if you got a vision, it is if you got a dream, is if you have a purpose. And so I put the meaning of life, and with apologies to the one I was telling you about earlier this morning about Maslow, who said these are the stair steps up. I don't know where he wound up. I've forgotten. I studied it one time in college, but like a lot of things I learned in college, I can't remember it now. So I guess it may not have done me much good. But anyway, he said these are the things. Well, I agree. There's a hierarchy of things. There's a ladder you climb. But when you climb to the top and you get up there and say, we got to have this. To have life, you've got to have some meaning, some purpose. And if you want to see why it goes bad, look again at Hollywood, and they are flying from coast to coast and across the world, and they've got a yacht over here and a yacht over there, and this guy's he's got a wife here and maybe one over there secretly, and maybe 2 or 3 other women, and then one day all of a sudden he kills himself. Why? He said, I was so jaded about it, I just didn't see anything to live for. Well, that's pathetic. Nothing to live for. So you quit living. So I would suggest to you that the Bible says you really ought to have a reason. And we'll talk more about that in the next session. But you ought to have a reason. And everybody says, such an impractical book. The very idea that say I have to have a reason. I think if I can go out and take all the drugs I want and drink all the whiskey I want and carouse around with all the women and or men I want and run over people and make money, I think that'll make me happy. Oh, really? That's what you think, do you? Well, the Bible said that ain't real. That's not real. And they go, well, no, the Bible's just an ideal book. I said, the Bible is the most down-to-earth book I've ever read. It does not call a spade an implement for excavation. It calls a spade a spade. And he said, this is the way it is. This is the way life really is. This is what's real. And then it says the way you get there, here's the commandments of God. He loves you. That's why he tells you, like a parent with a child, he wants you to do these things. And he knows if you do this will make you the happiest and most satisfied you'll ever be in life. And they say, oh, well, that's a nice book. We can't live up to that. That's too idealistic, it's too otherworldly. It's pie in the sky and the sweet by and by. It's not something you can depend on. So I'm suggesting that it's the very thing you depend on. So in our next session, we're going to talk about bringing it all together. Okay?